Have you ever felt just completely powerless when it comes to pollution? Like, what can one person even do? Well, what if I told you that the legal tools to actually fight back, they've been around for centuries? That's what we're doing today. We're going to crack open that ancient playbook and see exactly how it's still protecting our world right now. Okay, so let's paint a picture. Imagine a brand new factory opens up right near your home. And almost overnight, your backyard, it's just ruined. The air smells awful, your garden's dying. I mean, it sounds like a totally modern nightmare, right? But the crazy thing is, the legal answer to this problem, it isn't new at all. In fact, it's ancient. So where does this ancient answer come from? It's something called common law. Now, don't think about laws written by politicians in some fancy building. This is different. This is law that's been built up from the ground, piece by piece, over hundreds of years, based on real-world decisions made by judges in actual cases. You could say it's like the original blueprint for how to protect your rights and your property.
All right, so if this common law is our original blueprint, what's actually in this foundational legal toolkit?
Okay, right at the heart of it, you've got these three really powerful legal actions. People sometimes call them the Negative Trinity. And it's a good name because you should think of them less like something that gives you a new right and more like a giant, powerful stop sign you can hold up to prevent someone from messing with you and your property.
So these three pillars, they give you different angles to fight back. First up is trespass. This one's pretty straightforward, right? It's about a direct physical invasion of your property. You know, like a factory pipe literally dumping sludge into your yard. Can't get more direct than that. Then there's negligence. This is all about proving carelessness. The polluter had a responsibility to be careful, they weren't, and now you're the one suffering because of it. But honestly, nuisance might be the most powerful one. Here's the kicker. With nuisance, nothing even has to physically cross onto your land. If the constant grinding noise or that awful smell from the factory makes it impossible for you to just, enjoy your own home, you've got a case. It's about your right to peace and quiet.
Okay, so let's say you've done it. You've used one of those tools and proven you are wronged. What happens next? Well, this is where the law gives you a choice. There are basically two different paths you can take to get justice.
And this really lays out that choice perfectly. On one side, you've got something called tort law. Think of this as the personal route. It's you against the polluter. And what's the goal? Compensation. It's about making them pay for the damage they did to you. But what if the pollution is so bad it's not just hurting you, it's hurting the whole community? That's when things can escalate to criminal law. Suddenly, it's not just about you anymore. It's society stepping in. And the goal changes from compensation to punishment. We're talking serious fines or maybe even jail time.
Now, these ancient tools were incredibly powerful for their time. But then, the Industrial Revolution happened, and suddenly we were dealing with pollution on a scale nobody had ever imagined. The old common law toolkit, it just wasn't enough to handle this new reality. It was pretty clear we needed a major upgrade. So for centuries, we just chugged along with common law. But then, in 1972, the game completely changed. It was the Stockholm Declaration. This was a huge deal. For the very first time, countries from all over the world came together and formally agreed we have to protect the environment. And that one moment, it was like a starting gun. It kicked off this massive global wave of new, super specific laws, we call them statutes, that were tailor-made to fight modern pollution. And this is what that modern playbook looks like when you put it into action. Just take India as an example. Look at this. The legal code just exploded with detail. We're not talking about broad principles anymore. We're talking about specific acts for wildlife protection, for water pollution, and then you have the massive 1986 Environment Protection Act, which is kind of like a legal umbrella that covers almost everything else. And it gets even more granular with hyper-specific rules for hazardous waste, for biomedical waste from hospitals, and yeah, even rules for noise pollution, how loud things are allowed to be. Okay, so we've gone on this whole journey from ancient English courts all the way to modern complex laws. So what's the big takeaway? What does all this mean for us today? I think this is the most important thing to remember. The right to a clean, safe environment, it's not some new idea. It's built on a foundation that's centuries old, the simple idea of protecting your own property. The big difference, what's really changed, is that today those ancient rights have been, they've been supercharged by this massive modern arsenal of specific and really powerful laws. And that leaves us with one final and maybe a little provocative thought. We've got this incredible legal arsenal, right? A combination of ancient principles and super specific modern laws.
But here's the real question. What does it actually take to turn all these powerful words on a piece of paper into real-world action, into meaningful protection for our neighborhoods and our communities?